Are you all familiar with the scientist Rupert Sheldrake? He did this, he wrote this book, Dogs Who Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. And it was interesting because we don't say the word owner, by the way, because we don't own animals. They're our companions. We want to change our consciousness. You know, right now, unfortunately, dogs and cats are considered our property, and that's why it's so hard. You know, they have no rights, and that's why it's so hard to. It's getting better, though. You know, it's getting better. So what was I saying?
Sheldrake.
Oh, thank you. He did this really fascinating experiment. And because, you know, the skeptics say, and you know, they've told me, they've said, oh, well, dogs know when you're coming home. Cats, you know, my cat used to wait at the door an hour before I came home. Oh, they know because they can hear your car, or routine. They know, they expect you at a certain time and they show up. Well, no, that's not it. Rupert Sheldrake had people leaving any old time, being taken away in different cars, not knowing where they were going, receiving a phone call, okay, leave now. They didn't know when they were going to leave. And a cab, a taxi, a different person would take them back. And every time, under all circumstances, their animal was always waiting at the door. So, in fact, the dog is seeing the thought of you leaving the office. They see the thought in your mind. So animals, you know, they're natural psychics and they're natural empaths and they're natural healers and they are teachers. So the other way, the other level, and I'm going to make this brief because I don't want to bore you all, but the other level of how animal communication works is, I'm going to explain a little bit in terms of quantum physics. And I don't know that much about quantum physics. I know about this much, but I find it fascinating. And the first thing is that they're finding, scientists are finding, that every atom in the universe is connected and communicating with the other atom. All atoms are receiving and sending information, bouncing back and forth constantly, and in waves of energy, and it never stops. And they call this entanglement. And they say that even the tiniest photon falling from the stars will be entangled with every atom it meets on its pathway to Earth. Our bodies, our cells in our body are communicating with each other. Our bodies are communicating with each other. What's fascinating is that the movement never stops. And even at 0 degrees, when things should freeze and become solid, atoms are still moving. So they call this the 0-point field because even at 0 degrees, the atoms are still in constant motion. The other interesting thing about quantum physics is they compare the universe to a hologram, in that they are saying that you cannot separate one part of anything from the whole because the whole is contained in every part. And they've done experiments where well, they took this piece of film that was embedded with an image of a rose, but you couldn't see it unless a laser shined through it, and then you'd see a 3D of the rose. Well, then they cut the film in half, and they took one half of it, and they shined the laser beam through it, and they saw two, not one, but two roses in 3D. And then they kept chopping the little film up to like 8 little pieces, and they took one little tiny piece of this film, an eighth of it, and they shined the laser beam through it, and they saw 8 roses in 3D. So so we really are, when you hear the expression "we're all one," we really are. It's one big cosmic web. Quantum physics refers to it as the field. They refer to it as the matrix, the divine matrix. God, I refer to it as God. And it's in every, God, the presence, the field, the atoms, the energy is in every life form, no matter how tiny. It's everywhere, and you cannot ever be separated from it. It's our bodies that give us that physical illusion of separateness. And I want to read a quote in my own book. I've written a little book about cats, and my Zen practice, and dying. It's about death and enlightenment. But this quote is from, are you familiar with Alan Boone? He wrote Kinship with All Life. And it's a wonderful book. He didn't even have animals, but he took, I think it was Strongheart. It was a German Shepherd that was in the movies at one time. And I guess the dog was retired, so he took him. And this dog just changed his entire life in terms of awareness. And what Alan Boone says about the mind, this chapter is entitled One Mind. And Alan Boone says, "The mind of the universe is constantly speaking through all life and for the greater good of all life. There were no boundaries separating us from each other except in the dark illusions of the human senses." So we're the ones that build these boundaries, and in fact there are none. And quantum physics is they're proving that there are no boundaries. Energy has no boundaries. Thoughts are energy. And thoughts can travel faster than the speed of light, and that's how we do remote telepathic communication. I could be speaking to a cat in Peru. I mean, it's fascinating. How does that happen? We are all energy beings, and if you think of ourselves as in that way, then it really kind of it changes your whole perspective on how you relate to each other and your animals. So let's see. So quantum physics. There's more to say about that, but what I want to say a little bit now about. Well, let me just look on my notes, and I just want to see if I left anything out here. Okay. Oh, yes, very important. Remote viewing. In a nutshell, because it's real complicated and there's many stages to it, but in a nutshell, when I'm working with lost animals, let me begin by saying that I have a photograph, I have a connection with the person, I have their address because I dowse with the pendulum to see the direction the animal has headed and the distance away from where he went missing from. And I have all this information. But when you do a remote viewing, you have no information. They give you a set of 4 numbers. They're called coordinates. And with these 4 coordinates, somehow they're in your subconscious, and then you go into this theta state. And I'm not really sure if I go that deep. I think I go alpha. I don't think I've reached theta. I don't know. I don't have electrodes attached to my head. But you go into supposedly a theta state, and then when you open your eyes, you just start writing information. And all this information flows out. Where did it come from? Now that's called coordinate remote viewing. But there's also a remote viewing where you don't use numbers.